Good morning, children. Today let us start Unit 1, Outbreak of World War I and its Aftermath. In 1914, it is a turning point in the world history. Why? Because the World War I started. Why the World War I started? How it was started? In the 19th century, the European countries, as we have studied in 9th standard, they started their race for colonies, capturing territories in Asian and African continent that led to the rivalries and clashes among the great powers of Europe. So, the political and the social process that began in 1789 culminated in the First World War that broke out in that year and decisively shaped the course of the 20th century. The First World War decisively shaped the course of the 20th century. Historians therefore call this period, the 19th century, as the long 19th century. This was the first industrial war that drew on the economic resources of the entire world and also affected large sections of the civilian population. The political map of world was redrawn. Three major empires lay shattered by the end of the war. What were the three major empires? German Empire and Austria-Hungary, then Turkey, Ottoman Turkey, as we have marked in the map. I think you might have knew these places: Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Ottoman Turkey. The biggest outcome of the war was the Russian Revolution. Because of the First World War, in Russia, revolution broke out. It was a unique event as well as the first revolution of its kind in world history. For the first time, countries tried to bring about world peace through the League of Nations. The League of Nations was an international organization before United Nations organization. In this lesson, we discuss the circumstances leading to the outbreak of First World War and its effects, including the Russian Revolution and the formation of an international peace organization, that is League of Nations. Okay, next let us know about the scramble, the reason for the First World War. The basic reason was scramble for colonies, capturing of colonies. Capitalist countries race for markets. After the Industrial Revolution, every European countries, they wanted their goods to be sold in other countries. So there was a race for markets. The aim of capitalist industry was to produce more and more. The surplus means more and more wealth thus produced was used to build more factories, railways, steamships and other such undertakings. So revolution in the means of communication transportation in the later half of the 19th century facilitated the process of European expansion in Africa and Asian countries. A striking feature of the 19th century was that Europe emerged as the dominant power while Asia and Africa were colonized and exploited. Within Europe, England held a preeminent position, a dominant position as the world leader of capitalism. So Europe became the world leader of capitalism. An ever-growing demand for markets. There was a demand for the markets to sell their goods, made the capitalist power race around the world for expanding their empire for exploitation, exploiting the other countries. Next, rise of monopoly capitalism. After 1870, the alliance of industry and finance seeking profits in markets for goods and capital, which was an essential characteristic of imperialism, became evident in the later half of the 19th century. The old ideas of free trade collapsed. There were trusts in USA and cartels in Germany. That means, what is a trust? Trust is an industrial organization engaged in the production or distribution of any commodity. What do you mean by trust? It is an industrial organization. The trust would possess adequate control over the supply and price of that commodity to its own advantage. Okay, what do you mean by trust? They had the free trade policy was abolished, and instead trust came into existence in America and cartels in Germany. It's an organization to sell their products. Next, imperialism and its essential characters. What do you mean by imperialism? Imperialism means capturing the colonies and dominating the colonies. That is called imperialism. Domination of a colony, one country by another country, is called as imperialism. Capitalism inevitably led to the imperialism. According to Lenin was a philosopher or Prime Minister of Russia. Imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism. He said imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism. What do you mean by capitalism? Mudalalithuvam, one who invests the money in the industries, and they started increasing their capital. Besides being a market for surplus goods, colonies served as another purpose. Imperialism was not just about colonies, it became a total system, the logic of which was total militarization and total war. So imperialism then changed into a total war between the countries, world countries. Okay. Next, let us know about the rivalry of great powers. In the 19th century, European powers had colonized many other countries. By 1880, most of the Asian countries had been colonized. Only Africa was left. The occupation, division, and the colonization of Africa took place from 1881 to 1914. The colonization of Africa took place from 1881 till 1914, till the starting of First World War. After 1870, England, France, Belgium and Italy, then Germany joined the scramble of colonies. Scramble means capturing of colonies. Because of the capturing of colonies, there was a clashes among the great powers. காலனியை பிடிக்கிறதுக்காக மாற்றி 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 ஒருத்தன் பிடிச்ச காலனியை இன்னொருத்தன் போய் பிடிப்பான், இன்னொருத்தன் பிடிச்ச காலனியை இன்னொருத்தன் பிடிப்பான். ஸோ தேர் வாஸ் a clashes. Despite the lead in industrial growth and the control of a vast empire, England was not satisfied. England, whatever they had captured colonies, they were not satisfied. So what happened? England was in competition with Germany and United States of America, which were producing cheaper manufactured goods and thus captured England's markets. Before Germany started industrial revolution, European countries started European industrial revolution, and they produced more and more goods, and they captured more colonies and made the colonies as their market to sell their goods. But once Germany started the industrial revolution, it made more cheaper than the England's goods and captured the England's markets. So what happened? National rivalries led to frequent clashes between these great powers in Asia and Africa and in Europe. Asia. Now, let us know about the Asian countries. Japan emerged as a superpower during this period. In Asia, Japan during this period, 1867 to 1912, initiating Western nations had become their equal in many respects. Japan followed Western culture, Western education and Western technology. Though the outlook of the rulers, Japan rulers still remained feudal. Japan took the Western education, machinery with modern army and navy, and Japan emerged as an advanced industrialized nation. In 1894, she forced a war on China. A small country, Asian country, Japan, forced a war with China, the biggest country, China. And Japan defeated. The crushing defeat of China by little Japan, that war is called as Sino-Japanese War. The war between China and Japan is called as Sino-Japanese War. Surprised the world. World countries, they surprised by seeing Japan's power. Okay, despite the warning of the three great powers, Russia, Germany and France warned Japan not to wage war with China. They warned even though Japan defeated China. Japan annexed Liaotang Peninsula with Port Arthur. By this action, Japan proved that it was the strongest nation of the East Asia. Japan, however, in view of the pressure mounted by European power, soon gave up its claim over Port Arthur. Russia took advantage of this and sent a large army to Manchuria. Japan entered into an alliance with England in 1902 and demanded that Russia withdraw troops from Manchuria. Russia underestimated Japan. In 1904, the war began between the two countries. In this Russo-Japanese War, Russia and Japan, there was a war between Russia and Japan, that is called Russo-Japanese War. With China and Japan, it is Sino-Japanese War. Japan defeated Russia. Small country Japan defeated the biggest country, Russia and China, and got back Port Arthur. After this war, Japan entered the circle of the great powers. Okay. Strong armed diplomacy of Japan. After 1905, Japan took control of Korean domestic and foreign policy. The assassination, what do you mean by assassination? Killing of prominent Japanese diplomat, Japanese leader, provided the excuse in 1910 for Japan's annexation of Korea. The confusion in China following the downfall of the Manchu dynasty in 1912 provided Japan an opportunity for further expansion. So many opportunities gave Japan to expand its territory. In the Asian country, Japan alone became the great power, powerful country. Provided Japan an opportunity for further expansion. Japan demanded the transfer of German rights in Shandong and to Japan and the recognition of Japanese hold over Manchuria. Where is Manchuria? In China. This strong armed diplomacy aroused the hostility of both China and European powers. Okay, children, I think you might have understand. Colonization and its fallout. In 1876, barely 10% of Africa was under the European countries. The European countries captured most of the parts of African continents. By 1900, practically the whole of Africa was colonized. Britain, France and Belgium had divided the continent between them, leaving a few areas for Germany. What are the countries? Britain, France and Belgium. These three countries captured almost all the parts of Africa except a few areas for Germany and Italy. Britain, France, Russia and Germany also established spheres of influence in China. What do you mean by spheres of? It's a policy occupied by these countries of China. Japan took over Korea and Taiwan. France conquered Indochina. US took the Philippines from Spain. Spain already captured Philippines, but America captured Philippines from Spain, and Britain and Russia agreed to partition Iran. So almost Asian and African countries were under the hands of America and European countries. The first European attempts to carve out colonies in Africa resulted bloody battles. பயங்கரமாக சண்டை போட்டு தான் அந்த நேட்டிவ் பீப்புளோட சண்டை போட்டு தான் கேப்சர் பண்ணாங்க ஆரம்ப காலகட்டங்களில். த ஃப்ரெஞ்சு ஹேட் டு ஃபைட் அ லாங் அண்ட் பிட்டர் வார் டு கான்கர் அல்ஜீரியா அண்ட் செனிகல் இன் ஆஃப்ரிக்கா. The British lost to the Zulus and the Sudanese army. The Italian army suffered a devastating defeat at the hands of Ethiopian army at Adowa. Ethiopia is in Africa. Adowa, the Battle of Adowa. Okay, children. Now let us know about the causes and results of the First World War. In the 1900s, 5 of the European great powers were divided into 2 armed camps. The European countries sharply divided into 2 armed camps. One camp consisted of the Central Powers called Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy. Under the guidance of Bismarck, they had formed the Triple Alliance because of 3 countries, Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy. These 3 countries joined together, and they were called as Triple Alliance. They formed it in 1882. The understanding was that Germany and Austria would help each other. Suppose, what was the understanding? 3 பேரில் யாருக்காவது ஏதாவது பிரச்சனை வந்துட்டால் 3 பேர் சப்போர்ட் பண்ணிக்கணும். Their alliance was formed in now. The other camp consisted of France and Russia. Now, France and Russia joined together. They formed the Dual Alliance, 2 countries. Because of 2 countries, it is called as Dual Alliance. In the year 1894, with the promise of mutual help if Germany attacked either of them. An isolated Britain wanted to break her isolation. Isolation means தனிமையாக இருக்குது. பிரிட்டன் மட்டும் யூரோப்பியன் கண்ட்ரீஸில் எப்படி இருக்குது, மற்றவங்களாம் குரூப் ஆகிட்டாங்க, ஃபார்ம் பண்ணிட்டாங்க. பிரிட்டன் மட்டும் தனியாக இருக்கான். ஸோ பிரிட்டன் டிட் நாட் வாண்ட் டு பி ஐசோலேட்டட் by other countries. So an isolation of Britain wanted to break her isolation and approached Germany 2 times. But waste. Germany did not get the support of England. As Japan was increasingly hostile towards Russia, as France was the ally of Russia, it preferred to ally with Britain. So Japan, ரஷ்யாவும் ஜப்பானும் சண்டை போட்டுட்டு இருக்கிறதுனால இப்போ ஃப்ரான்ஸும் ரஷ்யாவும் ஒன்றாயிட்டாங்க. அதனால இப்போ ஜப்பான் என்ன செய்கிறான், பிரிட்டனோட என்ன வச்சுக்கிறான், கூட்டணி வச்சுக்கிறான். The Anglo-Japanese alliance prompted France to seek an alliance with Britain to resolve colonial disputes over Morocco and Egypt. This resulted in the Entente Cordiale. Entente Cordiale means mutual understanding in between Britain, France and Russia in 1904. In return for letting the French have a free hand in Morocco, France agreed to recognize the British occupation of Egypt. இவங்க 2 பேருக்குள்ள ஒரு ஆக்குபேஷன், ஒரு உடன்பாடு, மியூச்சுவல் அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்டிங் வருது. யாருக்கெல்லாம், ஃப்ரான்ஸுக்கும் பிரிட்டனுக்கும். ஃப்ரான்ஸ் மொராக்கோவை கேப்சர் பண்ணிக்கிறதுக்கு பிரிட்டன் சமாளிச்சுக்கிட்டான், அண்டு பிரிட்டிஷ் ஈஜிப்ட் ஆக்குபை பண்ணுறதுக்கு ஃப்ரான்ஸ் சமாளிச்சுக்கிட்டான். ஸோ தேர் வாஸ் அ மியூச்சுவல் அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்டிங் பிட்வீன் ஃப்ரான்ஸ் அண்ட் பிரிட்டன் பிகாஸ் ஆஃப் Entente Cordiale. Britain subsequently reached an agreement with Russia over Persia, Afghanistan and Tibet. Thus was formed the Triple Entente of Britain, France and Russia. So who were the Triple Entente country? Britain, France and Russia. Triple Entente country. Who were the Triple Allied countries? Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy were the Triple Alliance country. France, Britain, Russia were the Triple Entente country. Now, these 2 blocks, Europe was sharply divided into 2 blocks, Entente countries and Allied countries. Now, the war was started between these 2 powers, Entente and the Allied countries. With the growth of nationalist, the attitude of my country, right or wrong, I support it. Violent forms of nationalism. Each country started the aggressive policy, violent policy, nationalism. தேசத்தின் மேலே அப்படி ஒரு என்ன சொல்கிறது வெறித்தனம். என்னுடைய கண்ட்ரி, என்னுடைய நாடு, தப்பும் சரியும், ஐ சப்போர்ட் இட். My country, right or wrong, I support it, developed. The love for one country demanded hatred for another. The love for, with the growth of nationalism, the attitude of my country, right or wrong, I support it, developed. The love for one country demanded hatred for another country. England's jingoism, national policy, England's jingoism, France chauvinism, and Germany's culture, national policy, nationalism. England's jingoism, France chauvinism, Germany's culture were France militant forms of nationalism, contributing decisively to the outbreak of the First World War. Next, German emperor's aggressive attitude. Emperor Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany proclaimed that Germany would be the leader of the world. ஜெர்மனி என்ன சொல்கிறான், உலகத்துக்கே நான் தான் லீடர் அப்படின்றான், ப்ரொக்ளைம் பண்ணுறான். இது யாருக்கு பிடிக்கல? இங்கிலாந்துக்கு பிடிக்கல. த ஜெர்மன் நேவி வாஸ் எக்ஸ்பேண்டட். The sea being considered a preserve of England ever since Napoleon's defeat at Trafalgar. Germany's aggressive diplomacy and rapid building of naval bases convinced Britain that a German navy could be directed only against her. அப்போ பிரிட்டன் நினைக்கிறான், ஜெர்மனி நிறைய நேவியை என்லார்ஜ் பண்ண உடனே நம்மளுக்கு அகேன்ஸ்ட் தான் இவன் ஆரம்பிக்கிறான் அப்படின்னு. தேர்ஃபார் பிரிட்டன் என்ன செய்கிறான், அவனை விட ஜாஸ்தியாக எம்பார்ட் பண்ணுறான். விச் ஹைட்டன்ட் த டென்ஷன் பிட்வீன் த டூ பவர்ஸ். ஜெர்மனிக்கும் பிரிட்டனுக்கும் உள்ள டென்ஷனை ஜாஸ்தி பண்ணுது. because of the increasing of army, navy, everything. Hostility of France towards Germany. France and Germany were old rivals. What do you mean by old? எப்போ பார்த்தாலும் சண்டை போட்டுகிட்டே இருந்தாங்க ஃப்ரான்ஸும் ஜெர்மனி. பிட்டர் மெமரிஸ், ரொம்ப ரெண்டு பேருக்குமே பயங்கரமான என்னது கசப்பு. பிட்டர் மெமரிஸ் ஆஃப் த டிஃபீட் இன் 1871 அண்ட் லாஸ் ஆஃப் அல்சேஸ் அண்ட் லொரைன். ஜெர்மனி என்ன செய்கிறான், ஃப்ரான்ஸோட சண்டை போட்டு அவனுடைய 2 ஏரியா அல்சேஸ் அண்ட் லொரைனை கேப்சர் பண்ணிடுறான். இந்த 2 ஏரியாவும் வெரி ரிச் இன் ரா மெட்டீரியல்ஸ் லைக் கோல் அண்ட் அயன். அண்ட் ஜெர்மனி ரேங்கிள்ட் இன் த மைண்ட்ஸ் ஆஃப் த ஃப்ரெஞ்ச். ஃப்ரெஞ்சுக்கு எப்படியாவது ஜெர்மனிகிட்ட இருந்து சண்டை போட்டு இந்த 2 ஏரியாவை கேப்சர் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்ற வெறியில் இருந்தான். ஜெர்மன் இன்டர்ஃபரன்ஸ் ஆஃப் மொராக்கோ. அப்போது ஃப்ரான்ஸ் மொராக்கோ கேப்சர் பண்ணும்போது ஜெர்மன் ஓடி போகிறான். நீ இது மொராக்கோ இன்டர்நேஷ்னல் காலனி, யாரும் கேப்சர் பண்ணக்கூடாது, நான் அவன்கிட்ட சண்டைக்கு போனான். த பிரிட்டிஷ் அக்ரிமெண்ட் வித் ஃப்ரான்ஸ் ஓர் மொராக்கோ வாஸ் நாட் கன்சென்டட் பை ஜெர்மனி. ஸோ கைசர் வில்லியம் II intentionally recognized the independence of the Sultan and demanded an international conference to decide on the future of Morocco. Okay children, next cause was imperial power politics in the Balkans. The young Turk revolution of 1908, an attempt at creating a strong and modern government in Turkey, provided both Austria and Russia with the opportunity to resume their activities in the Balkans. Austria and Russia met an agreement that Austria should annex Bosnia and Herzegovina, while Russia should have freedom to move her warships to the Mediterranean. Soon after this, Austria-Herzegovina announced the annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Austria's action aroused intense opposition from Serbia. Germany gave Austria firm support. Germany went to the extent of promising that if Austria invaded Serbia and in consequence Russia helped Serbia, Germany would come to Austria's assistance. The enmity between Austria and Serbia led to the outbreak of First World War. Understand children? That is this, like this, the World War started. Let us stop this video with this. Next class we will continue the rest of the causes and course of the war. Okay children?